Hey, thanks for joining us on another episode of Construction Tech Talk right here on Iron Pros. This is another of our legendary We Talk to Smart People episodes. We call them that because we talk to smart people. Today, we are doing as well as we possibly can on that front with AJ Waters. How's your day going, sir?
It's going good. Hopefully, I can live up to the expectations there. The smart people, I might have to lower the bar a bit.
Well, that's my job. Don't worry about that. You'll look fantastic. So AJ Waters with InEight software. What can you tell us about? Why don't you just give people the quick elevator pitch on InEight so you guys can get your pound of flesh out of spending some time
Yeah.
with me here today.
Well, so InEight is an end-to-end construction and capital projects management platform from design all the way to closeout. And so basically what we've done is we've connected what has been disparate throughout the industry for so many years and brought those workflows under one umbrella so that the data can work together, the analytics can work together, and we have a foundation that we can build upon for predictive and AI and things like that moving forward.
Yeah, so when it comes to what kind of contractors are a fit for the software, where's your sweet spot?
That's a great question. We get that a lot. And I'd argue if someone's using our entire platform, the sweet spot is a self-perform large GC that's doing a lot of their own work. But our platform is modular for the fact that not everybody is that type of customer. So we allow people to license only certain pieces or to roll back some functionality that they may not need to fit their business case the best.
And to be clear, this is all subscription-based multi-tenant software. There's not like a bunch of legacy technology that folks are buying into.
That's exactly right. All SaaS based, and it could be private tenant or multi tenant. You do have that option as a customer, but yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
no
So what
legacy.
caught my eye recently is this news that you had of some new analytics functionality with some AI capabilities. Now, some of this is built on Microsoft Power BI. So what's the relationship to BI with the product? Do people need to have a Microsoft Power BI already? Is that bundled in a sales situation? How does that work?
Great question. So we're actually built on the Microsoft Azure stack. So our technology is built on Microsoft's cloud, and therefore, when you license InEight, Microsoft Power BI comes with it. As far as the out of the box dashboards within the solution, so you as a user can utilize anything that we've built and make any tweaks to what we've done. We did all the data mapping on the back end for you so that there's not a lot of programming that needs to be done. However, that doesn't always fit every user. So there are some cases where people will want to get really custom with their dashboards, or they may want to integrate third-party solutions that we don't cover. And in that case, you can use a Power BI license that you have for the desktop app, pull the dashboard down, make the tweaks, publish it back into our software. So the only time you need your own license is if you're getting really fancy with your dashboard.
Yeah, yeah. So that's actually a pretty cool model. And the idea of, some capabilities being wrapped in with Power BI already is probably attractive to that CFO who wants to fight that SaaS sprawl in the
Yes,
contracting
exactly.
business. Now, so the other thing that kind of jumped out at me with your recent announcement is the AI element. And it seems like you're looking at being able to take data from within it and expose it in some ways with some AI capabilities to help with decision support in different phases of the project lifecycle. What's going on with that?
Yeah, so we've done a lot of work on our first release, which is in our scheduling system, to do historical benchmarking and start to suggest for a scheduler things that would make logical sense, whether it's sequencing, whether it's activity durations, whether it's an entire subnet for a schedule. Those things are suggested based on the AI model. And then it moves one step further to risk. So it looks at your historical performance when it comes to risk analysis and risk mitigation, and use that to suggest possible risks based on location, project type, activity type, you name it. And so that was the first evolution of our AI component. We like to say that it's their suggestions, and we always want to highlight that we do that to work in concert with human intelligence, right? So that people can make intelligent decisions, but not necessarily be forced to use what the computer is telling them.
Yeah. Well, what we're seeing across multiple industries, AI in a business setting be used more as that guide on the side.
Yep.
I don't think that we're right at that jumping off point with many scenarios where the AI is going to be making the decision and acting unilaterally. But
Right.
right now, if I'm a contractor, hey, yeah, I definitely want to come to a better understanding of what my existing data says for what I had to do with this project that I've accepted or am planning for right now. How much data does someone need in InEight to really, provide that type of decision support right now? What kind of project history?
Well, it's a lot less than you think. One project will start the algorithm, just
Okay.
one. However, that algorithm is going to be based off of the one that you put in there, right? So the more data that you can throw in, obviously, the better the results get, the more learning the system does. And we actually give you the ability to upload old schedules, like past projects that you may have on file for the last 5, 10, 20 years, depending on how far back you go, to pre-teach some of that intelligence into the system.
Yeah. So, right now, what kind of use cases do you have in the customer base? Is this something that's gaining traction right now? Is it the type of thing where people are kind of sticking their toe in the water?
So we see a little bit of both, depending on who the customer is. I'd say that probably the number one use case where we're seeing it is with the new scheduler. So if you think about your career in the industry, when you first started, every time you did something for the first time, it was checked by another person, right? Like I remember when I first started in estimating, I did an estimate for some concrete foundations, and a guy looked over my shoulder and said, "That's got to be wrong," because the foundations as a whole were not $300 a cubic yard, which is just what he knew, gut check, they had to be. Well, that kind of knowledge is walking out of a lot of companies right now, right? That they're retiring, they're moving on, or we just flat don't have them available anymore. And so the system is doing that sort of check for you, right? It's looking at your historical performance on a schedule, and it's saying you're doing this activity on this type of a building of this particular size. It should be roughly this duration, and it gives you kind of a little, we call it a TIE fighter type wheel on each end of the bar, where it gives it some standard deviation. So that's the use case where we see it the most, because it's that gut check for the new person to say, oh yeah, this does make sense, or no, you probably want to relook at that.
Yeah. Well, what I hear from some entities that are rolling out AI in different settings is that the ability of that more experienced person to look at the suggestions from the AI and say, yeah, that makes sense to me, is really important in the
Yeah.
acceptance of the technology. And it just means it just has to get smarter and better, right?
Yeah, and every time you ignore a suggestion or accept a suggestion, it learns from that, right? So every new suggestion that you throw away, or just flat out ignore, it goes, oh, that wasn't good in that scenario, so we're going to remember that next time. And so, like you said, as those experts roll through and go, yes, no, right down the list, it starts to get smarter.
Yeah. Well, I know that pattern very well, having been married for almost 20 years. Every time I ignore a suggestion from my wife, I learn from that, sometimes very immediately.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this all really ought to make good intuitive sense to people. But right now, do you think that your customers, by and large, are beginning to realize benefit from this, or are we still in very early days?
We are in early, I'd say we're still in the early phase, but we have seen a couple of instances where a risk was caught that they weren't previously preparing for, and so that ended up on their mitigation strategy. Now, it's often hard to quantify what that's worth, right? Catching it before it ever happened. But there have been a few instances where customers have come to us and said thank you because we didn't know this was coming, and the software suggested, hey, maybe think about this. And sure enough, we utilized that mitigation plan.
Yeah. So, what are the different decisions that you're supporting? Is it strictly like, the planning and scheduling? We're seeing some application of AI to, go and no go decisions for projects. What are all the use cases right now?
Good question. So our initial release of it was in planning and scheduling and then risk analysis. So those are kind of our two places, but we do it in both schedule risk and cost risk. So it's not limited to just your schedule. Our next iteration that's coming is your estimate benchmark. So starting to suggest that $300 a cubic yard type item, and then execution plans. So you're going out to build a work package for a pipe run, and it's going to give you a suggestion of, hey, this is how you've historically built a piping work package. These are some safety concerns you should probably think of, some tools you usually use, how the scaffolding is built, etc. So those are kind of our next phases that are on the horizon.
Yeah. Now, one thing that we also see in some AI driven features in construction software is the size of the data store that the machine learning algorithms can access. In some cases, the software vendor will make the entirety of their customer base's data available to the AI, and then everyone benefits from that machine learning algorithm that gets smarter more quickly. Do you think that that's viable for your customer base? In some cases, they might have very different approaches, or or project mixes, or business strategies. Do you think that it's desirable to keep this strictly within the one account, or where do you see that going?
It's hard to say where it's going to end up. Currently, the way our customers are operating is they want to keep it in house. They know how they build it, they know why they build it that way, and so they don't want any bad data to blur the model. The other thing they don't want to do is they don't necessarily want to share any secrets that may be built into theirs, right? So our customers have actually specifically asked to keep that under wraps. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So, where do you see InEight being with AI in like maybe another year? And maybe you've got things firmly on the roadmap that you're going to be moving towards, or it could be more of an incremental, uh, you know, progression that you see.
Yep, definitely going to be incremental, but I would say in a year we'll be to the point where those cost benchmarks are coming out at you. Um, we've got some ideas still on how we think it might be used, but more importantly, we want to hear now that it's out and customers have it. We want to hear where they're interested in it being next, right? What's a use case that they could find benefit from it, and we'll focus there. So we want to be very open to market feedback on where AI is heading, and not just kind of blow with the wind on what the buzzwords have pointed at lately.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of the things that we're seeing too with AI are definitely in pre-construction, and
Yes.
some of that may be round tripping uh, the past project, so you can take a look at your actuals when you're coming up with pricing for that next similar project. Sometimes it's taking a look at change orders that have typically come with a particular owner or a type of project. So you can begin to kind of wrap your head around that as you figure out what you want to price at that time. Uh, do you see like a lot of that going all the way up to the estimating phase next, or is that something that you think will be a longer term
I see estimating coming pretty quick. What's interesting about some of the stuff that you said there is think about the application once you move into execution, right? And the idea of the analytics predicting trips, like maybe you get a couple of near misses, and all of a sudden you get a flag, and AI says, "Hey, you're going to have a serious injury over here if something doesn't change," right? And so those are some of the places where we're starting to look at, what are those common instances where we could set a tripwire that would give us an early alarm.
Yeah, yeah. And what's kind of intriguing is that chances are contractors have had experienced people for decades that might be able to look at things going on in a project and begin to identify where emerging risks are. Maybe they even raise their hand and say, hey, we need to change things. And maybe they're not listened to, but then suddenly a computer comes along and you're suddenly taken seriously. Uh, do you think that that's a factor at all?
Yeah, it's amazing what a little red indicator on a dashboard will do for people.
Yeah, yeah. You see, next thing you know, my wife's going to put a little red indicator on my screen too, and I'll be able to tell her I'm about to get in trouble. And that'll really be fantastic for me. But I think that what you got going on in InEight is like a fantastic step in the right direction. When I look at a lot of the concerns that people have for AI, the dreams they have for AI, it really seems like we need a really good, steady as you go approach. And that's, I think, kind of what you guys have going on here.
Well, and one of the things that we're priding ourselves in, right, is to get to AI, you need a common data set. And how do you get a common data set when you've got 20 different systems? Like you said, the SaaS growth or spread that IT professionals start to be scared of. So combining everything within the single platform, that was step one.
Yeah.
That consolidation was the first phase that built the foundation that AI could leverage. And so that's what we're really excited about.
Yeah, well, even getting people off of Excel, which
Yes.
is going to be ad hoc-ratic. But now we're seeing the emergence of some tools too that will clean, scrub, and harmonize data from multiple sources. But still, why? Just get into a consistent enterprise application, right?
Yep.
Okay. Well, I think I've learned a lot right here. Hopefully, folks joining us here on Construction Tech Talk on Iron Pros learned a lot as well. If you like hearing from the real gurus like AJ here on a regular basis, keep on coming back because I think we've established a precedent here and we're going to be talking about this stuff periodically. And AJ, thanks so much for coming on here and letting me work you over.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, and we'll talk soon.